football feast.
I gotta turn this down, Bob.
Wow, wasn't that fun?
I'm a kid, so I call it KFAN.
PA and Charch.
Let's go, everybody. Let's go. Good morning.
Hold on to your butts.
We're happy for you. You homer!
Got to be careful with Johnny Pecker.
Double doink.
9 to noon.
Now, what did I do wrong?
Thinking of those days gone by now. Music in the air. Life was
All right, now, here we go now. It is the Friday football feast. Just a few days in front of the oxymoron known as legal tampering. And a day after a certain basketball player caused a lot to say, Anthony Edwards, good Lord, man.
Rick Carlisle's got a timeout left. The free throw is up. It is no good. The rebound of the Pacers. They don't call a timeout. Halliburton, the hit ahead. Neesmith with it. Dribbles in. Shot blocked. Oh, my goodness. What a rejection by Anthony Edwards to save the game. 113-111. Wolves win. Wolves win. Anthony Edwards. Oh, my. What a block on a potential game-tying shot by Aaron Neesmith. Anthony Edwards got up for the most ridiculous block you will ever see. He got upended, almost came down on his head, but he didn't feel a thing. He popped back up, and he is fired up. Taking a look at the replay, Edwards comes from out of nowhere to block the shot. That was awesome! Oh my goodness, he was up there.
PA and Charch.
Hey, Nardo.
Hey!
That was phenomenal. I mean, not only the block, but Alan Horton calling it in the iHeart family. Do you mind if we hear that again?
No, I do not. Rick Carlisle's got a timeout left. The free throw is up. It is no good. The rebound of the Pacers. They don't call a timeout. Halliburton, the hit ahead. Neesmith with it. Dribbles in. Shot blocked. Oh, my goodness. What a rejection by Anthony Edwards to save the game. 113-111. Wolves win. Wolves win. Anthony Edwards. Oh, my. What a block on a potential game-tying shot by Aaron Neesmith. Anthony Edwards got up for the most ridiculous block you will ever see. He got upended, almost came down on his head, but he didn't feel a thing. He popped back up, and he is fired up. Taking a look at the replay, Edwards comes from out of nowhere to block the shot. That was awesome! Oh my goodness, he was up there.
Nice job, brother. Paul Allen, Paul Charchi, and Nordo by our side. It's the Friday football / front court feast. The Minnesota Timberwolves in their first sans Karl Anthony Towns and that knee beat the Indiana Pacers on the road. What did everybody think of the game and the game-sealing block? And good morning, Charchi.
Good morning. I have told you for years the most exciting play in basketball is
block shot.
The block shot. How thrilling was that?
Yeah,
that was a jump out of the sofa moment to cap an amazing game by Anthony Edwards. It's in some regards, it's just an anonymous, roughly 60th game of the season, right? But this was probably in totality, the best game of Anthony Edwards' career. When you look at all of the things that he brought to the table, the defense, the shooting, and then capping it off with the blocked shot to literally save overtime. That was a 98% make layup that Anthony Edwards Dole on a play in which he says he's never jumped higher. He's probably right. When your head goes crashing into the underside of the rim, that was he skied in a way that we almost never see, and it was as thrilling as you're going to get out of an anonymous 80th, 60th game in a season.
We're coming.
What'd you think of the game and the game sealing block the Nords?
Rising to the occasion, figuratively and literally yesterday. And that's really the key. Everyone's down about Karl Anthony Towns. What's going to go on? Surgery, no surgery. Sounds like there might be some updates on that and when he might come back. And then 30 seconds into the game, PA, yesterday, Anthony Edwards is hobbling off the court because he turned his ankle.
Right.
And so you're getting the situation where no kitty cat. Okay, well, how's this thing going to look? Who's going to handle extra possessions and extra shots and all of that? Can there still be a defensive juggernaut against Halliburton and this Pacers team that all they do is shoot, all game, all day? And then Anthony's out, and then he comes back 44 points later, and the cherry on top of everything, rising to the occasion. I think he might have hit his head on the bottom of the freaking rim. Unbelievable block by him. Awesome moment, and it was an awesome game.
There are a couple of things that jumped out to me. First and foremost is
that's what this team is all about: defense and working hard.
They kept the NBA's highest scoring team 12.5 points under their season average.
That's what this team is all about: defense and working hard.
That's a terrific accomplishment. I mean, these Pacers, they'll put 150 on you. I think they scored 151 against Dallas just a couple of days ago. You hold the NBA's highest scoring team 12.5 points under their season average is a terrific accomplishment. Once again,
that's what this team is all about: defense and working hard.
Whether it's the Timberwolves, either figuratively or realistically being on the wrong side of some things sometimes, like some calls and stuff. How about the ref swallowing the whistle
at the end?
I mean, and it's a road team. All right, so you got all that Indianapolis state of basketball fan base. Fans are right next to you, all over you. And Ant goes with the 42-inch vert, blocks Neesmith, and it was a congested situation. Swallows whistle. That was big.
And thank you for that, by the way. This is how we want more games to end, this way, right? And so I was very happy that we didn't turn it into just a bunch of free throws, which is what it looked like. It was just going to come down to a series of free throws at the end. And I'm glad it was way more epic than that. And this is, frankly, it's what the NBA needs. And what is the worst part of any NBA game are all the stops at the end and all the, just turning it into a free throw exercise. So, delighted by that. Also, some really good defense from this team when they needed a strong defensive game. You mentioned it, but how about 9 steals for the Timberwolves in this game? Getting steals out of Rudy Gobert, we'll take that. Couple of steals from we'll take that. Nas, we'll take that. It's there were some real reasons for optimism here. Kyle Anderson didn't give us a lot offensively. I think just like 3 points or something.
8 minutes though.
But we'll take the defense that he provides as well. So it was first game without Karl Anthony Towns. Turns out to be a statement win,
a little bit
for the season and for Anthony Edwards.
I'm curious to see, and Nordo and I discussed this a little bit yesterday because the whole thing popped right before 9 to noon. And then Nordo informs me, and then we're going with a Shams report about a torn meniscus. Yeah. And then Woj or somebody comes over the top with the ESPN. It's like, hold your metaphorical horses. It's a meniscus. It's a knee, but now it's confirmed that there's a torn meniscus, and it's going to be reevaluated in like a month. So maybe you'll be able to play in the playoffs or something like that. But it nevertheless, it is, and it's going to be. And so the last night was the first one without him, and this is going to bear analysis game by game because it's going to be a marked, dramatic change to something because Karl can be so polarizing. So step one, the letter A, so say this gets us through all the alphabet of days, is the loss definitely of Cat doesn't help. But I just started to think as I was watching this thing and thought about it a little bit yesterday that losing Edwards, Gobert, or Conley for like a month or more, I think is more debilitating than Karl Anthony Towns.
Because?
Because it's the fall off from, Conley is, okay, he's near the end, not as fast as he used to be. He doesn't score the way he used to, but he can. But he's your quarterback.
Yeah.
So, then now you're rolling into Monte Morris and Josh Dobbs and Jaron Hall and Jordan McLaughlin and so on. So that's such an important spot. Edwards is the best player in the team. That's the end of the story. Gobert's going to be defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
So then you got Cat. And then it causes me to hearken a couple of weeks ago to our weekly Finch interview where on these airwaves, he's like, we are really, really, really good when Cat plays really good defense. And he just kept stressing how good they are. Well, I mean, defense is not Karl Anthony Towns' calling card. And, can it be better? I'm sure it can. I think that's probably what Finch was getting at there. But in the first without him, they hold the NBA's highest scoring team, 12.5 points under their average, with Halliburton getting his 23. So Tyrese, Halliburton, their best player, he got his 23. And they still held them to a 111, which is pretty good in this day and age of the NBA. So step number one, something defensively found a little cohesiveness against a very high-scoring team when it had to, and it was sans Cat. We'll see where it goes tonight against Cleveland.
So now we find out, are the Wolves really materially better without Cat this year than they were last year? So we got the long sample size without Cat last year, and it was a very inconsistent team.
Yeah, that answer is yes.
And
because of the D'Angelo Russell piece.
Well, even after that trade, this team was still a very inconsistent team. Even when Conley was here and Naw was here, after that trade went down, the Wolves are still very inconsistent without Cat, and they were ultimately ejected in the first round of the playoffs. So now, is this team better this year when you're in really much of the same situation that they were playing in for parts of February, March, and April of last year?
Same name, same players, but Gobert's different.
He's playing so much better.
There are different facets of it that are born of, I believe, comfortability, of knowing you belong here with them, in this, with those coaches, and it's working. So they're 1 for 1 without Cat, and they slowed a very high-scoring team. Now they're at Cleveland tonight. The Cavs are down Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, those two versus Rudy Gobert. Ooh. That has some bloodbath to it tonight.
Yeah.
And we're on a back-to-back, and they're not, but they're down Donovan. So it's very intriguing with 19 to go for the Howl. TimberTech.com. Thank you. It's the Friday Football Feast. The guests today include, about an hour from now, a man named Dan Weeder. He covers the Chicago Bears for the Chicago Tribune. Used to cover the Minnesota Vikings for the Pioneer Press. An hour from now, some off-season Bears steam and free agency ties from the Scribe. And then at about 11 o'clock, a person you hear on Fantasy Football Weekly, and somebody who has worked with NBC and is juiced into not only pro and college football, but is driving the J.J. McCarthy bandwagon. His name is Thor Nystrom. The reason I know Paul Charchian knows Thor, I met Thor through Paul, is the reason I asked you to have him on today is because he is the leader of this J.J. McCarthy bandwagon.
Single-handedly.
If you look at his Twitter and read his stuff and everything, man, he just makes some really, really good points about rookie quarterbacks who are going to be drafted in a month and change. That's coming up at about 11 o'clock. Nordo produces. That's Paul Charchian, and I'm Paul Allen. You're listening to the Friday Football Feast at FM 100.3 KFAN. Surely had the opportunity to interview a man named Matthew Slater. Nordo produces a podcast I do called Faith and Goal, and Matthew Slater was the subject of this podcast, Faith and Goal, which is available at KFAN.com via my show page, the Paul Allen show page, or the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get podcasts. It's Faith and Goal. I think we've done about 45. And Matthew Slater just retired. after 16 years with the New England Patriots. As we would say on Faith and Goal, his career was very thy, not I, in that he always wanted to play wide receiver, but really wasn't good enough to play wide receiver, even for some of those Patriot teams that didn't have great wide receivers. So he embraced the opportunity to become maybe the best special teams player and or gunner in the history of the National Football League. Matthew's going to be in town in about a month and a half, and I'll talk more about that momentarily. But Matthew had some really, really nice things to say about Marcus Sherrills and laid out some things very eloquently with this week's version of Faith and Goal. We started the conversation with Matthew with me saying, congrats on a great career, man, and what's going on?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate you having me. It's great to be on with you.
Is Servite still a football powerhouse in Southern California? Because back in the day, like the games against Mater Dei or some of these other powerhouse football teams, man, they were unbelievable.
Oh man, I tell you that there's some of the best football played in our country, right there in Southern California and Orange County, and Servite's right in the mix. But right now, we're all chasing Mater Dei and St. John Bosco. They've been tremendous the last couple of years, so that's the standard that we're trying to chase.
So St. John Bosco, is that up off 210 in La Cañada?
Yes, you know it well.
Wow, holy cow. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been to that little stadium, kind of a sunken stadium they have there, but it's absolutely beautiful, man. And
it is. It's a ton of fun.
Right. And before you joined us, Matthew, I just called you the greatest special teams player in the history of the game. And there's a lot that goes into that, longevity being very, very important to me. But when it comes to a statement like that, how do we qualify the likes of, say, Devin Hester or your former teammate Cordero Patterson?
Yeah, I mean, look, those guys in my mind are in a different stratosphere. You know, you think about the impact that Devin had on the game, and it's so great to see him be honored with his Hall of Fame selection. It's so well deserved. I mean, he changed the way a lot of people thought about special teams. He impacted the game as a returner like we've never seen before. And then obviously CP having the all-time record for kickoff returns for touchdowns. Just such a dynamic athlete with the ball in his hand. So those guys are just special players, and I have such an appreciation for guys like that. You know, every guy brings his unique skill set and experience to the league, and that's what makes our league special. But to have guys like that, to have been able to compete against guys like that was truly an honor.
But we absolutely qualify them as returners, right? Kick returner, punt returner, Dante Hall, human joystick, punt returner, and then you get like Vinatieri, your former teammate, or Goskowski, another former teammate, and like Sean Landetta back in the day. I mean, those would be kickers, punters, and returners. For you, I mean, to define for those who know your name and they know you played all your career with the New England Patriots, most of it on special teams, like what did you do to impact games from a special team standpoint and last in the league a decade and a half?
Well, the good Lord was very kind to me. That's the number one thing. He really presented me with a great opportunity, and I tried to make the most of it, but he took care of my body and saw me through it. So I'm so thankful for that. But, to me, it was first understanding that everybody has a role on a football team. And the good players in the league, they understand what their role is, what they're being asked to do, and they try to excel in it. And, very early on, Coach Belichick defined my role, and I tried to embrace it and excel in it. I tried to master my craft for 16 years through consistency and hard work. And, that I always say special teams is about hitting yardage. So, pinning a team deep or creating a big play in the return game, those yards matter in the game. And stood that, and I really into it. It was a thrill to go down there and try to tackle a returner for a big play, or it was a thrill to go out there and block for a teammate returning the football. And I think oftentimes we forget about that third phase of the game until something bad happens. And then you're like, oh, that's an important part of what we're doing. So what an honor to be a part of Coach Belichick's teams for all those years, with a coach who really bought into the third phase of the game.
Do you happen, it might have been before you got in the league, but I don't think it was. Do you happen to remember when the Baltimore Ravens used Adalius Thomas as a gunner and that monster running down the field 100 miles per hour?
Oh my gosh! Well, I played with Adalius here in New England.
Wow!
And I can tell you this right now: there's no way I would have wanted any parts of blocking that guy. I mean, the guy's 6'4", 275, running the 4.6 or 4.5. Good luck getting in the way of him. But again, that just speaks to some of the special athletes. Things these guys are able to do, I just really marvel at.
You're bigger. You're on the bigger side, and you were super fast. Adalius is an outside linebacker, defensive monster with his thickness and his height and everything. But then here in Minnesota, man, we had Marcus Sherrills here, a Minnesotan for many years, and
That's right.
Marcus ain't that big, and Marcus is slight of frame, and I think he's the best gunner potentially in the history of Minnesota Vikings football. Definitely the best punt returner. So, like when you're gunning or playing coverage teams, yeah, size and speed matter unless you're like Marcus, and then a lot of it comes down to just the fortitude and tenacity that special teams players have, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned Marcus. I was really a huge fan of his work and watched him over the years. And the one thing I'll say about him is he was fearless as a player. Whatever you asked him to do on the field, he did it full speed. He did it with a lot of confidence, and he was super competitive. But I think when you look at him, as you said, not the biggest guy, but he understood the ins and outs, the techniques, the things that we don't always talk about that really enabled him to put himself in position to make plays consistently. So you couple that football IQ and that skill set with that fearlessness, and you have one of the great players there, in my opinion, in Vikings history. And I think you said it best, maybe the best gunner in the history of the organization. So there are more than one way to skin a cat. I think for all of us as players, we have to find out what our strengths are and play to them, and hopefully that leads to some success.
And you are, you were one of the, if not the best at what you did on coverage teams and special teams all of your career. It's 16 years, and all with the New England Patriots. Now, I'm gonna venture a guess here, Matthew Slater, that there probably were opportunities during your career, or maybe you could have gotten a little more money from somebody else other than the Patriots. Maybe somebody was going to, give you more of a chance at wide receiver, but you stayed with New England and the red, white, and blue of football immortality for all 16. Was it important for you, like your father, Jackie, with the Rams, basically 2 decades, was it important to you to start with one team and finish with that same team?
Yeah, it really was, and I'm glad you asked that. It's not something that I talked about often, but for me, I always had in the back of my mind the continuity that my dad had with the Rams and how fortunate he was to spend his 20-year career with one team, and that was one of my goals. Now, I didn't know how realistic it was going to be for a guy in my position to stay with one franchise his entire career, but when I did have opportunities to leave or decisions to make, I always kept that in mind, and it was important to me to be loyal to the franchise, and I'm glad that the franchise felt the same way about me and that it worked out to be together for 16 years. It was truly a blessing, and something I take a lot of pride in, to say that I played with one team for the entirety of my career.
Now, that's from the Faith and Goal podcast. You can find it at KFAN.com on the Paul Allen Show page. Thank you, Matthew Slater, a very, very impressive individual who you will have the opportunity to meet April 20th at Grace Church in Eden Prairie. It's a yearly event called Arise with the Guys. This will be the 3rd year that I've been part of it. Matthew Slater, David Tyree, who made the helmet catch in the Super Bowl, he also will be there speaking. And likewise for a yearly yearly contributor, and a football immortality, Tony Dungy. So it's arisewiththeguys.com for information and or tickets. It's April 20th in Eden Prairie at Grace Church. Matthew Slater, I can't wait to meet him in person. Arisewiththeguys.com. Vikes Bites are next.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. It is time for Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites.
Actually, it's time for you and I to do a Vikes Bites because Charch and the program director are going back and forth about TurboTrax.
I love TurboTrax.
A new
the music thing.
That was the best. It's the best when there's friendly fire and you're securely hidden behind some type of big giant block.
When you just get to spectate.
Just the best.
And watch the carnage.
It's the hyperventilating I just witnessed between two people talking about music and podcasts. It was just a wonderful way to head into the weekend.
It's about the lawyers, Charch. It's about the lawyers.
Oh, he knows.
It always is. It always is.
We live in a litigious society, do we not? So, there we are. Vikes Bites, though, it's not brought to you by a law firm. It's brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. Go to thousandhillslifetimegrazed.com. See their amazing products. You can shop online. They ship them right to your door. Barbecue pork and barbecue beef sales. By the way, the proceeds go to support Dinkytown athletes and Dinkytown athletics. So they're trying to keep local kids home. It's a local company, Clearwater, Minnesota. Go to thousandhillslifetimegrazed.com. All this talk of a QB, Charch.
Yeah.
Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall are still on the roster next year. Draft a guy, bring Kirk back, bridge QB, this, that, and the other. Are both or either Mullins and Hall on the roster and back on the team in 2024?
Yeah, I think Mullins is here. I think it makes sense. He's been in the system for a long time. We know what we're going to get out of Nick Mullins, which can be game-winning play. So, yeah, I think Nick Mullins is back. I don't believe that we're going to see Jaron Hall again. I think they know what they got with the kid. He was a flyer as a 5th-round quarterback. I don't think he's a guy that you'd be comfortable giving snaps to, so I don't think it's going to happen for him. But Mullins, by the standard of backup quarterbacks, and you hope you don't need to go to one, and we did. I think he played well enough to probably hold on to that job, and we're not going to have the luxury to sign a better, more accomplished backup quarterback anyway. In all probability, his team's going to be tight to the cap. So yes, we're going to go yes on Mullins. We're going to go no on Jaron Hall. Not that we've seen a lot of Jaron Hall.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. Maybe it's not even fair to ask about fair, but you mentioned taking a flyer on him. Mm-hmm. He gets thrust into the spotlight. What was it, New Year's Eve against the Pack in a primetime game, and he didn't look prepared or ready for said event. Mm-hmm. In the end, can you be fair and ask about, was it fair to Jaron that it's a one and done potential situation if he was to not be back? I don't know.
Yeah,
in terms of a development aspect and all of those things. He's doing some nice things in the preseason. Ooh, look at the way he threw that to Nick Muse, open field, 10, et cetera. And then fast forward, he's thrust into the Atlanta game because of the injury, gets the concussion on his second drive, and then it's the Packers game, and then, well, see you later. Best of luck.
Yeah. I
don't know if fair is even the right way to look at it. It's a business, but very limited opportunities and chances and reps for Jaron Hall.
It was I'm tainted a little bit by the outlook that Jaron Hall was given to me by Thor Nystrom, our 11 o'clock guest, when in the offseason he was not crazy about that pick for Minnesota, and he had some specific things that he didn't love about Jaron Hall's game, and then the reticence to get him into the game for the Vikings, and then the brief part that we saw was not good. So we have a very incomplete look at Jaron Hall, but from what we can see here, not seeing practices and everything else that goes into it, I think when the season starts, there's a different third quarterback on this team.
Okay, I dig that. Vikes Bites. Let's jump right into it. I was going to go down the road of preferred QBs on the market, like those bridge QBs, and maybe that's something because this Kirk conversation, I imagine, will come up later in the show, so we can save some of those names. But how about Ezra Cleveland? You guys remember Ezra Cleveland, Boise State, Blue Field? He's a tackle, but he's drafted maybe to potentially be a tackle, but ultimately he's moved inside to be a guard. And he's traded last year as off the street. Dalton Reisner comes in and puts a name on himself and gets an opportunity to take the job. Kwesi feels comfortable. I think he got a 6th-round pick for Ezra Cleveland. Goes to Jacksonville. Well, what about this? This is from Rap Sheet yesterday. The Jaguars and standout. That's in the tweet. Standout. That's in the tweet. Standout. It's in the tweet. Yep. The Jaguars and standout guard Ezra Cleveland have agreed to terms on a new 3-year deal worth $28.5 million, sources say, with $14.5 million guaranteed. They moved quickly to keep him off the market in a deal done by blah, 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 agent's name, etc. What does that mean for our left guard position as we think about a name, as in Dalton Reisner? So how do we frame up the trade? You get a 6th-round pick. Jags love him. $28 million later, he's on a 3-year deal. And now what does that say about us trying to fill that left guard spot as Dalton Reisner is not on the roster?
If you believe the deal that will be presented to Ezra Cleveland, legal tampering day Monday and official on Wednesday, if you believe those numbers, and I do, well, then it can be argued that Ezra was slightly, or to whatever extent you want to analyze it, overpaid. Okay, he got more than a lot of people thought he would get. The salary cap is going up. The Jags always have a lot of money to spend in free agency. Well, what Ezra Cleveland got is not Dalton Reisner's problem. It's not Dalton Reisner's fault. So in the business like this, it's, you would know, Charch, and you know it, of course, it's the A market was set. Yeah. With those numbers.
It's kind of like Christian Kirk a year or two ago with Jacksonville. Yeah. It's not Christian Kirk's fault the Jags wanted to pay him $20 a year.
Yeah. 9 to noon really hopes Dalton Reisner is back on the team. All right. Dalton Reisner's pass protection last year, as I've been told, as I've been told by members of the coaching covenant, was very good. Okay, well, the fan has also learned we are a pass-first team. And 2 years ago, we threw 61% of the time, and the coach would throw 80% of the time if they would let him, because the passing offense is very, 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 very good when all components are functioning, unlike last year with the 4-quarterback trick. But quarterback, that's the key here to the question. And it's been a month and a half, really a month-long theme, 9 to noon, and with the Friday football feast. Until the Cousins conundrum is solved, it's difficult for people like us, even ancillary people working with the team, to prognosticate and mentally shape what things potentially will look like until you know who your quarterback is. Mm-hmm. So Monday, a lot of things are going to come to a head, but, the being at the Combine, whether it's hearing Sean Payton's adoration for J.J. McCarthy, or Drake May is this, and Spencer Rattler is that, and the Verse Cat is going to be generational like Marvin Harrison Jr. You just hear so many things. One thing that I did hear that I just have not shared since I got back because I haven't thought of it is there are teams interested in Dalton Reisner. And in the illegal tampering part of the whole thing, that's at like the Combine. Well, that's like Kevin O'Connell said 6 days ago on NFL Network. Here we are, and even though agents are not supposed to talk about things and stuff like that, they do, here. And so that was just us postulating early in the week that Kevin's kind of got steam that, hey, that this Cousins thing's down the road with somebody, and like it's close to pen on paper. That's just guessing, but nevertheless, that was the feeling. Well, just because he's the A topic in the NFL right now, Kirk Cousins is where he's going to go. For the team, there are other free agents that the proverbial dominoes are going to fall when this quarterback thing gets solved. Reisner is a big one, in my opinion. And he's a big one because, like the right guard, Ed Ingram, okay? And we've talked this out a million times, man. And you and I have worked together 15 years, so you know how I operate. I need, with these rookies and coaches in general, you get 2 seasons. Before it's like you're awful or you're great or you're middling. I don't generally fall back to those opinions until we've seen 2 of them at least in totality. And with Ingram, all right, his first season, there were problems. But he played every single game, made every single practice. And for a rookie offensive lineman, that's rare. So that's a W. That was a W of some sort for Ed Ingram his first season. Second season, now you got to analyze, did he get better? Did he get worse? Did he stay the same? He did miss time now. Okay, so do you actually need to consider who your right guard is going to be into 2024? Something I wouldn't have said into 2023, but I've now seen 2. So if I'm told that I got to analyze this right guard spot, well, then I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. What about your left guard spot? I honestly don't see how they can't re-sign Dalton Risner unless there's another guard, free agency-wise, that they think they can bring in who will be as good in pass protection and maybe for less. But Ezra kind of set the market there, man, with that 14 guaranteed. And Dalton beat him out of his job last year, so much so they traded him. I hope Dalton is re-signed. I really, really do.
Agreed. And yesterday, the Rams signed their free agent guard, Kevin Dotson, 3 years, $48 million.
Kevin Dotson.
Yes.
I've never heard it. Dobson.
D-O-T.
Oh, dude.
Dotson.
Man, who the hell's that cat?
Kevin Dotson. He was regarded as one of the top 3-ish guards in free agency, but that's a big guard deal.
Yeah.
Now, if you're the Vikings, whether you're bringing Kirk back or you're going to bring in a rookie to try to have success in the pocket, I mean, look what Kirk did this year. And why did Kirk jump to the leader in yards? Why was he at the top for touchdowns? In no small part, because he was giving the best offensive line play that he had in his career.
Correct.
There was those 2 things correlate.
Correct.
So
with a running game that, with all due respect, was impotent most of the time.
A perfect word for it. That to me tells you how important it is to bring back Risner for any scenario. If you're going to bring back Kirk, put the things in place that move Kirk from a B+ quarterback to an A- or an A quarterback. Yeah. And that is keeping the continuity of that offensive line. Risner should be a priority add. We talk so much about JJ and Danielle Hunter. Risner's he is close to as important. It's not as important as those guys, but he's in this conversation of guys you got to keep or find a way to adequately replace.
So I'm just going to dagger this unless Nordo has something he wants to add with 3 quickies. One, I'm going to repeat it. At the Combine, I was told there are teams interested in Dalton Risner, and that means Monday, legal tampering day. Okay? So, hey, there are teams interested in a lot of different players, and you hear a lot of different things. I happen to absolutely, conclusively, in concrete fashion, 100% believe this, that there are teams ready to scoop Risner who sat out all of free agency last year, couldn't get any work. But then what did he put on film? Dynamite pass protection. Okay, his run blocking, maybe that's just not exactly who he is, moving man that way. But pass protection for a team that passes, I find him to be very important. Secondly, are you sure Ingram is your right guard? Okay, if you are, well, then maybe you can just solely focus on this left guard spot. If you're not, well, then that means the left guard could be right in front of you, and it might be more expensive than you thought, but you can fill it. And then you move on to the next part of the offensive line if you think you need a replacement at right guard. And I can't say they do or they don't. Thirdly, Dalton Risner is a vocal leader on this team. It's a team where Jefferson's fiery, but he can be quiet sometimes too, like the hitman. Like some of the best players on this team are on the quiet side. And Risner's not like that. He's a galvanize the fist, the offensive line, and galvanize the offense kind of guy.
Feels like it's been that way for a decade.
That's just how God wired his personality.
Like Eric Hendricks, Anthony Barr, Hitman, Everson was that energy spark plug that just in some ways was uncontrollable. Daniil's never talked.
Yep. That's the one I couldn't think of, Daniil. But like Patrick Peterson, all right? Patrick led by example.
Yeah.
I'm near the end. Yeah, I'm that 4-2 LSU 40 guy that you remember with all those punt return touchdowns for Arizona. I'm not that guy anymore. but I'm going to last in the league another 5 years because I'm smart. And here's how you can play smartly. But it doesn't mean it's the get in here. I got one thing to say. This is where the big dogs come out. If you can't run with the big dogs, stay off the porch. Yeah. Dalton is kind of that guy for a team that I believe needs players like that who are authentic with their motivation and good at what they do, specifically pass protection for a team that throws the ball a lot.
Vikes Bites. And now
I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, and now you got me stuck on the O-line because let me continue down this road. When do you start thinking about Darrisaw's money? Because Andrew Thomas got paid a year ago, and that was following his third season, which would be right now for Christian Darrisaw. And Darrisaw is another one of those maybe lead by example, but not loudest guy in the room unless it's Kirk O'Chains on the flight home. But then Brian O'Neill pops his Achilles at the end of 2022. Last year, he was inactive for 3 of the final 4 games because he was banged up again. So that's 2 straight years in which O'Neill suffered and had some injury issues.
Yeah.
And then there's Bradbury, who's signed to actually an incredibly team-friendly deal for the next 2 seasons. The entire offensive line, in a lot of cases, requires questions, requires pondering, and is kind of it's a sneaky, massive talker among the other big dogs that we focus so much time on, Charch.
Well, and the problem for Darrisaw is he's just backed up between too many immediate need guys. Cousins, Jefferson.
He's stuck in queue, right?
Greg Joseph.
Greg Joseph, Daniil Hunter, Jordan Hicks. There's a lot to get done. And I just think Darrisaw is just going to have to be patient on this, but no way does he get out of the building, right? I mean, you've got one of the 3 best left tackles in the league.
Yes.
So, at some point, you've got to get Darrisaw done, and I'd like to believe Rob Brzezinski has already allocated that money in future seasons.
Are either of you playing Luka Doncic this week? I mean, that triple-double last night with 35. Good Lord, with Luka this week. Holy cow.
I've been lucky to avoid some of those guys.
What do you got this week, Doogie?
I got Holy Chet, man.
Okay, because Donovan
I think,
Mitchell.
Is that Ambrad?
Yeah.
Doombuya?
Donovan Mitchell's down right
Doombuya,
now.
my lord.
And, man, we're getting close to the finish line of the NBA regular season. I know these are Vikes Bites, but the getting is good right now, man. I mean, the finish to this season with the NBA, man, it's going to provide some exciting moments. Like Steph Curry stepped away from the game last night. He got himself hurt a little bit. Draymond Green's hitting 3-pointers. The Wolves are winning without Karl Anthony Towns, holding the Pacers 12.5 below their season average, which happens to be number 1 in the NBA. Jokic is laughing at the whole thing, thinking, go ahead and disrespect us. We have job to do. Now we go home. We'll probably hear that somewhere in June. Embiid, Joel Embiid, what's up with him? Trey Young's down. The Bulldogs back and messing around with double-doubles and having a good time. Yeah, this is fun.
It's crazy, man. If there was a year, I will say this.
Wembanyama blocked 6 shots every game.
Yeah, correct.
He's unbelievable.
Unreal. He's insane.
He's unbelievable and I know he's long. He comes out of nowhere like a thief in the night and just robs your dreams.
No, he's sweet. But it's a graveyard of players right now. Russ Westbrook, Pirtle,
look at DeMontis
Levine.
Last night, 31, 17, and 9.
Smart, Morant. I mean, everybody is hurt in this league right now.
Yeah.
Embiid, you mentioned him, and now Karl Anthony Towns.
Domantas Sabonis is the
insane.
First player in a decade and a half to have 45 consecutive double-doubles.
I like it.
That's nuts.
Holy cow!
And you know who employs him?
Yeah.
Con!
Yeah.
Moving on.
Anyway, sorry for the diatribe. With the ESPN's on in here, and they just did a little basketball thing that I found to be, even with the audio down, quite intriguing.
A couple of guys are entering the final years of their deals. A lot of decisions for Kwesi to make. Would you extend Harrison Phillips or Byron Murphy? Both of them entering the final years of their deals. I would say that Harrison Phillips had an absolute jump-out second year with the Purple. Part of it, though, was based on usage. So he also played, I think, the most snaps of his career in a season last year, and he was the most productive. How do you balance the usage with the breakout statistics? And then Byron Murphy, final year of his deal, I think it's $10 million for Murphy, $8 million for Phillips in terms of their cap hits in 2024. But again, final seasons of their time here, potentially contractually. Byron Murphy kind of stuck in this cornerback group where he's the best and maybe the most savvy of said group. Up and down times at various points of the season for him. Would you extend one or both? Neither? Any thoughts on either of those guys that pop out at you?
Murphy, based on what we saw last year, is a definite no for an extension at this stage. Now, it probably stays with the team, although not impossible that he's a cut candidate without looking up his contract based on how he plays, just replacement level play. But could get better. It's second year in the system. Maybe Murphy's back, but I don't like the chances. Phillips is a lot harder to fill in, I think. But I don't see a scenario where you act a year early on Phillips. I think the more likely scenario is you let this season play out, get a better feel for what you've got in Harrison, who I like and I think does, I think
I like him a lot.
As a one technique, I like Harrison Phillips, and I'd like to keep him here. But again, you just have so many other pressing needs that a guy who's under contract, that doesn't start to hit radar to me until like the middle of next season when you start thinking about Harrison Phillips. So, yeah, I go Harrison Phillips much more likely than Byron Murphy based on what we saw.
Vikes Bites! Last one for you, Charch specifically. Since last Friday, we hear the news of the pending release of Alexander Mattison. Then it becomes official. Since then, have you pondered any further the prospect of the running back spot?
I have.
And maybe how to attack it in 2024.
Yeah, like where does Cam Akers go in your guillotine? Round 6, 7, 8, or 9? Because you better get ready for him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a career for Cam Akers, unfortunately. It's sad. There's the Vikings are
not.
No,
but go ahead.
I think it's going to effectively.
You're hoping.
No,
don't.
I'm not hoping. Almost nobody comes
his
back.
Career's over.
Almost nobody comes back from one Achilles.
Yeah.
I don't think history of the NFL anybody's come back for two.
Fair point.
From two. I just don't. I just think it's two uphill.
Russell Wilson's in Pittsburgh, but continue.
He's visiting Pittsburgh right now.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. They can have him. With I think the Vikings they've got 2 4th-rounders. One of the 4th-rounders, running back.
Yes.
I'm interested in to me, that's about the right spot. And this is not a good, deep running back class. You need to, if you don't take somebody in like the 4th round, it falls off fast, unfortunately. Some names to think about that you may hear bandied around the 4th round. Jonathan Brooks from Texas.
Hey.
Marshawn Lloyd from USC. I'm a little more interested in.
The Horns with Bijan Robinson, the cap for the Bears.
Yeah.
What was it, Roshan Johnson?
Roshan Johnson.
Yeah, now that's
Jonathan
a running
Brooks.
back. It's a running back factory in a passing day and age.
Absolutely is.
Well done.
And that's how Jonathan Brooks didn't get on the field until this last year because he was stuck behind Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson. Marshawn Lloyd from USC is really interesting. And he reminds me a little bit of a poor man's Robert Smith.
Oh.
And
Upright runner?
Yeah. Yep. Kind of a track speed kind of guy, vertical speed. And then Michigan's Blake Corum, who's there are a lot of divergent opinions on Blake Corum, running behind an amazing offensive line at Michigan that's just opening up these gigantic lanes for him. Not clear how that might translate to an NFL where you don't get that luxury very often. But those are 3 guys in the 4th round that the Vikings could target to bring in more competition for Ty Chandler.
Vikes Bites provided by
Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef.
Michael Thomas, the receiver for the New Orleans Saints, yesterday called a beat writer covering the Saints a hoe.
This show is naughty and might make you a potty mouth.
That and more into hour number 2. It's KFAN.